Okay, ladies, I'm going to do a little tutorial. This was a request from Tanya. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, sweetheart. I am impromptu doing this little tutorial. This is to help with some stamping. If you guys haven't done a whole lot of stamping, or maybe you're brand new to it, stamping is one of those things that people love to do if they know how to do it. If you're new to it, you've never done it before, can be overwhelming, and really the only reason why people get frustrated or say they don't like it is because they don't know how to do it and they have horrible results and it ruins their project and they say, I don't want to do it. It is a skill just like any other skill out there with creating things. So if you know the basics and you practice, you'll get better and better and better at it. Before you know it, you'll do beautiful, beautiful things on your creations. So here are some basics to help you out with your stamping. The very first thing that I would like you guys to do is always make sure you have a soft surface, something like this. If you don't have a soft surface, the other option is, like, for example, when you buy a Close to My Heart stamp, you always get this little foamy thing in the background. That will suffice. You don't want to stamp on like your hard table. You think it would be a good solid surface, but it never fails. You will actually get a worse stamping image if you stamp on a hard table. You want a nice hard table, but you want a soft overlay over it like this. My favorite way to do it, and I'll move these off so you can see. Close to My Heart sells a mat that's called the Versamat. It's wonderful for stamping and as well as making your layouts in your cards. The one side, this is called a Versamat, like I said. The one side has the measurements across it, which is really helpful for lining your stuff up. And it's hard on the one side. When you turn it over, it's got the soft on the other side, which is perfect for your stamping. Okay, so that is your first number one key for stamping. Your second key is stabilizing your hands. No matter how steady you think you might be, if you don't stabilize your hands on something as you're stamping, you will have the ability or the option to wiggle while you go down, and you will have extra ink where you don't want it. So what I tell my ladies is when you have your block and you're going to go stamp, is I always put my hands right on my mat wherever I'm going to stamp, okay? So the very first thing I do is I put my hands on my place, okay? If that means my whole entire forearms and my hands, then I will do so. If my hands are sitting on my surface, that will give me stability. You don't want to be up here and doing this, because then you have the ability to do this. And that is going to be wiggle wobbly, and you are going to get all your ink on your block around where you're going to stamp. So you want to stabilize your hands. The only things that should be moving would be your fingers going up and down. Give yourself some stability. I also find that if I stand up and I stamp, it helps me as well. These blocks are clear for a reason. If you're looking through the block, down through the block, through the clear block, you'll be able to see exactly where you're able to stamp. So back in the day when they first started making blocks, they were wood. You couldn't see through them. It was a big guess as to if you were going to position it exactly where you needed it. It was very common that your stamps were off. When you placed it where you wanted it on the paper, it ended up being slightly off. You don't have that problem anymore having a clear block. So keep that in mind. Just look right through your block. Stand up if you need to. Make sure you have that good positioning. Scoot your block closer to you so you're looking right through it, and you can stabilize your hands at the same time as you go down. The key is to go down straight, keeping your hands stabilized. Go down, nice pressure. You can even put a little pressure in the middle if you need to. Most of the time you don't. Hold it there for a second and then come back up, okay? A lot of people like to do this. You don't need to smash. You're putting ink on paper. You don't have to bulldoze it, is what I remind my ladies, okay? Straight down, slight pressure, little extra if you feel like you need to, come back up. Don't wiggle wobble, don't smash it. Just nice, straight down, come back up. Next little hint is make sure you're using the appropriate size block. You don't want to use a little tiny block on an image that's humongous, and vice versa. You don't want to use a little tiny image on a huge block because you're just risking putting a lot of extra ink on a very tiny image. For example, this little bubble. You don't want to put it on a big, huge block like this. Try to put the appropriate size image on the appropriate size block. That way it removes the risk of moving your block while you're trying to stamp and getting extra ink around your block. So this would be an example. This block is perfect for this shell. This block is perfect for this fish. This block is good for this little skinny fish. Okay, so these are good examples of what you would use for the different images. So that way you're using the right size block for the right image. Another good tip is as you're putting your image onto your block, make sure you don't have a bubble underneath your image. I have a tendency to, when I put my image, my acrylic image onto my acrylic block, I think it's polyurethane or I don't know how you say it. When you put this image onto your block, I have a tendency to roll it down. If you just slap it on there, sometimes air will actually get caught underneath there and will trap a little bubble underneath there. So when I put mine on there, believe me, this is really sticky. I lay it down almost like in a curved fashion. So that way I know that I'm not going to get any air bubbles onto there. And I'll actually kind of look at it underneath my block and make sure I don't have any air trapped under it. It's really hard to purposely do it. Otherwise I would try to trap some air under there, so you know what I mean. But it's usually pretty obvious if you did trap some air underneath it, because you'll see a big huge bubble in it. And when you go to stamp it, you'll have a big huge hole underneath where there should have been ink and there should have been stamping on your paper. You'll see a big huge hole. So just make sure you didn't trap any air under there. And you can fix that by literally just lifting it up and then putting it right back down. Okay. The next key to getting a nice crisp image is by seasoning your stamp. Seasoning your stamp, they suggest you do it when you are starting a new block. Starting a new stamp. So I'm sorry. So some ladies say do it every time you start a new stamp. Some ladies say do it every single time you go to stamp. I usually just do it on a brand spanking new stamp set. Now, what is seasoning? Seasoning, and pretty much all it is you're taking the extra stickiness off of your stamp. That's, it came right off the press. It's a little extra sticky, and it's just getting it ready, preparing it to get ready for the ink, if you would. So there's two different ways I've heard that you can season your stamp. The first way is taking a lighter color ink and stamping with it different color times. So for example, if I was going to use this peacock ink, that's a really dark teal, I would take a lighter color, similar color like Glacier, and I would season my stamp, brand new stamp, never been used. I would get my ink on it and I would just stamp it a couple times. Okay? So that way I know it's ready to go. So that way when I go to actually do the image, I've kind of tested it out, if you would. It's seasoned, it's ready to go. So when I go to do the real image, I'm going to be ready to go. Okay? I'm going to have a nice, crisp, clear image. Okay? Now I am just demonstrating for you guys right now, so I'm not doing the perfect technique. Okay? So that's your first way to season it. The way I like to season it, which to me is a little bit easier, and I don't have to search for another ink. It doesn't take as much time. Brand new, never been inked, is you season it, take it, and you season it on your arm. What am I doing? In essence, if this freaks you out because you're a germaphobe, don't do it. In essence, I'm putting my skin cells on it, okay? I'm making it just a tad bit less sticky so that when it goes to receive the ink, I'm gonna put my ink on there. And I'm gonna stabilize my hands. I'm gonna look through my black. I'm gonna go straight down, some slight pressure, and then I'm gonna come straight back up. I'm gonna have a nice crisp image. I can do it again. And then I'm gonna stabilize my hands. I'm gonna go down, slight pressure, hold it, and then I'm gonna come right back up, okay? So you're probably thinking, well, Trish, how do I know how much ink I put on my block? So here is the key to knowing how much ink you put on your block. I tell all my ladies, the key to making sure you always put enough ink on your block is give yourself a little rhyme or something to remember. I always tell my ladies, dot, dot, rub, rub, dot, dot. Or some people do tap, tap, rub, rub, tap, tap. Whatever works for you, always ending on a tap, okay? If you end with a rub, you'll actually have a smeared look across your stamp, and you don't want that. So, but you want good coverage. So I've always told my ladies, dot, dot, rub, rub, dot, dot. Okay? So we got that. Stabilize your hands. Straight down, slight pressure, straight back up. Okay? You're going to have nice inking. If you're worried that maybe your ink pad is not as full as it should be, maybe it's an older ink pad or whatever, you can always look right through your block, ladies. It's clear for that reason. Look right through it. Make sure you got good inking on there. You can usually see if there's an area that didn't ink as well as another area. So just dot, dot, rub, rub, dot, dot. Look through your ink blot. You can see all the ink. It's nicely inked. Okay? And then go down. Now, if you wait too long, you get distracted. You start talking to your friends, whatever. And it's a water-based ink. You don't want to wait too long before you stamp with it. The water will actually start to accumulate in certain areas. You'll get a splotchy look to it. So if you've been sitting here, you're talking, you're jib-jabbering with your friends, you're having your little sippy sip of your drink, and you forgot you didn't stamp, don't go and stamp right now. It's going to look blotchy. Go ahead and re-ink, and then go right back down again. Okay? So there's some tips that will help you for stamping and having a nice, crisp, clean image every single time. Make sure you have something soft to stamp on. Don't do it on a hard surface. Hard surface with something soft on it, like a Versamat or like your foamy thing in the back. Make sure you're stabilizing your hands. Look through your block. Make sure you're inking correctly. Dot, dot, rub, rub, dot, dot. Look through your block. Make sure you're inked. Your ink is covering nicely. When you go down, straight down, pressure, straight back up. No rocking, no rolling, no smashing. We're not putting dirt down with a bulldozer. It's ink on paper. Okay, when it comes to cleaning your stamps, there are a zillion different ways to clean it out there. The current way close to my heart has right now is this little blue little scrubber thing. Now, as you can see, I've used mine. It is not destroyed. It's called Well Used, okay? So this is slightly damp. I took it over to the sink and I got it slightly damp. I wrung it out. So it is slightly damp to the touch. I literally just take this and I rub the ink off of my block. And all this is soap and water, ladies. Soap and water, okay? Soap and water. My ink is off and I can put it right back onto my transfer sheet. And I'm good to go. Now, the darker the color, it will stain your acrylic just a little bit. It's more, if it dyes it, it doesn't really, it's like a stain dye. So don't let that worry you. So like reds It will give like a pinky look to it. Dark blues, it will make a slight bluish tint to it. And blacks will give like a grayish look to it. Any other color will not tint it, but like you can tell, barely tell it was even used. That doesn't mean they're ruined. It just, the clear will take on a little bit of a color to it. There's nothing wrong with it. That is very, very common. Inks have a tendency to do that. They are nice and clean. You don't have to worry about that transferring that color to another project. This is really fun. It is kind of like the wax on, wax off of the stamping world. When I'm done at the end of my projects, I take it to the sink, I clean it out, I wring it out, and I'm done. I let it dry in the open position, and it will actually harden. And then when I need it again, put it in the soap and water and let it get wet, and it will get nice and pliable again. And this is over and over and over again. And as you can see, it will pick up some staining, but it comes right back out, and you can use it over and over and over again. That is the one way. The previous way we used to do it, and we don't even sell these anymore, we have a little scrubby brush and a spray, which is just soap and water. And you can use these and scrub your stamp set, let it air dry for a second, and put it back on your transfer sheet. Either way, soap and water, ladies, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Unless you are using on a different base to your stamp ink that's not water-based, like these are all that I'm showing you are water-based dyes. I'm sorry, let me get in the camera. A water-based dye. If you're using a different kind of base dye, like a pigment-based dye, you might have to use a different kind of cleaner. But most of the regular inks that we've been using for our everyday stamping is water-based. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful to you.